The source of materiality is actually maternity. This means while matriarchs do not inspire wisdom, they inspire something called progress. So, progress does not have a secant to it. It has multiple factions of the same reciprocal notion. This makes it a square of a circle rather than a circle of a triangle. So, these right wing states that fuse joints of inert bodies are actually solstices of a retrograde. So that retrogrades are right and wrong at the same time. And that's how the functions of a trinity form to stop the ability to encircle a mass. And masses are the index ward for understanding how each functions of the Trinity inherit the legitimacy of the two bodies that they represent, which is the maternal and the paternal class. So, maternity under Trinity states that nobody gets the function, but the ability to understand how size works. Because size is a graphic container of the lower and middle class. So if class functions at all, not only does the obsolescence of gaining advantage adhere the vote, it satirizes the notion that financialization occurs. So under financialization, there is a government. And governments subsidize Congress into seceding from the Senate their bribes called welcome. And welcomes are check marks on a codex that doesn't sustain but negates the middle class of every vote. So, under two universal middle classes, not only does the North and South Pole congregate to encircle the bodies are financial to the extent that they do not have linguistic trademark. And trademark is the maternal care that operates the lenses of each part of the maternal class under rights. And these rights are sequented to the point that matter is not an existential property, but an existential threat. So matter is actually part of the maternal class here because it no longer sequences the maternity, but actually sequences the ableism of maternity. So if you're ableist under maternity, you lose matter. This is why fumes are so sensitive to women because they do not remember themselves as anything but a living pump for other organs. This is a feminist embryo rather than a feminist language. So, under feminism, there is a paternal class called the central apparatus of congruency. So, congruency is when language is formed to fit a device. And devices are semi-decimal to accepting the lozenge of who gets to be into and out of the paternal class. Because there is a market for these things, which means there is a seizing of denotation. Denotation is municipal to nothing but the ability to form into squares. And squares are not only in squares graphically, but also square roots that transfer these units into one another. So it's not as if the square is a function of the ability to form into middle classes. It's the middle classes that function the squares. So the squares themselves must turn the maternal triangle upside down to even have congress of speech, which is them obeying the nature of physics. So physics is the beginning of mathematical language in maternity because they no longer believe that paternal figures are their master. They actually believe that paternal figures are the symbiote of themselves. They believe that they are part paternal figure, but also part against the paternal figure. While paternal figures are in love with the maternal figure while still being represented by the maternal figure. This is a double negative on all people that speak their language because it means that the paternal figure is no longer a Nazi but actually a communist. So communists are different in the sense that they do not have language. They have the ability to transform. So transforming under fascism would mean that the Nazis, which is the maternal class, would need to subsidize a party of different faction squares. And these squares are unitary to the central axis, which means they are dispersed only amongst liberal students of themselves. This has a patriarchal notion that the classes themselves do not sit down at the right table, but believe that the table is congress to each part of it. The parts of this table would be called a vote. And the voting would be the maternal class seizing the assets from the paternal class, which is called patriarchy.